So today I'm interviewing Patrick Bet-David from Valuetainment. This is the number one entrepreneurship YouTube channel. He is what I like to call a mentor's mentors. And Pat, thank you so much for doing this.
Brother, thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
So I wanted to ask you, Patrick, how did you get here? How did Patrick Bet-David become Valuetainment, or Patrick Bet-David of Valuetainment?
You know, I'm born and raised in Iran. When we came to the States, I escaped, went to Germany, lived at a refugee camp for a couple of years, and then came to America. I mean, this was a dream for us to come to America. Went to school, didn't do too well in high school, got out, went straight into the U.S. Army. I did that for a few years. I got out of the military. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. And then I met a girl named Janvier who was working on Morgan Stanley Dean Witter at the time, and she would always pick me up in a different car. We were dating for about 6 months. And, you know, she said, what do you want to do with your career? I said, I don't really know right now. I want to be a bodybuilder, maybe one day be an actor, Hollywood. I don't know. You know, that's the direction I want to go into. And I asked her what she did with securities and stocks and what that meant. And eventually, I started working on Morgan Stanley Dean Witter. I got into the financial industry the day before 9/11. Then I went to Transamerica for 7.5 years. And in October of 2009, started PHP agency with 66 insurance agents out of Northridge, California. Now we have roughly 8,200 insurance agents in 49 states. And Oscar De La Hoya is one of my business partners, Gabriel Brenner, and Atalaya Fund from New York, which is a $2 billion fund. And we've grown. Now, so throughout this journey, I started kind of seeing what's going on with social media. And I started seeing, as a guy who lives a very private life, I'm a private guy. I don't share everything about my personal life with people. I've always been the one that stayed away from family. I didn't get too involved in the different communities. And but one of the days I started noticing, you got two brands you're building in the world today. Everybody in the world is walking around naked. Paul, it can take me 30 minutes or less for me to find out politically which way you lean. All I have to do is go on your Twitter account, Facebook, LinkedIn, watch a couple of the videos about you, and I pretty much know you don't like Trump, you like Trump, you don't like Clinton, you're a Democrat, Republican, you don't care, you're married, you're not married, you have kids, you don't have kids, you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, do you make money, you don't make money, you know what your personality is, are you a cocky guy, arrogant, humble, full of yourself, do you know what you're talking about, are you fake, are you lying? You know, you can pretty much find out everything about everybody nowadays, right? So I realized if you don't do something to build your brand, everybody else is going to build your brand for you. Very simple.
Wow.
If you don't do something to build your brand, everybody else is going to say who you are. So I took the lead. I said, let me tell you guys who I am. This is who Patrick Bet-David is. You either like me or you don't like me. Here's what I stand for. Here's what I believe in. Some of the stuff you're going to say he's completely full of it when it comes down to capitalism, because I believe in socialism. Some people will say, this guy's absolutely out of his mind. He sells life insurance. Who would sell life insurance? No problem. He's from Iran, and his mother was a communist, and his dad was an imperialist. Who is this guy? Does this guy work for the CIA or DEA, or who is he with? You know, there's too many weird things he talks about. But now you know who I am. So we accidentally started a YouTube channel a few years ago. We were kind of late. A lot of people went through Vine, MySpace. I was never a Vine guy. I've never been on Vine. I don't know what Vine app looks like. So we came very late to the YouTube scene. 2013, I believe, was the first time we uploaded a video, February or January of 2013. And then from there, we had a slow start and maybe got 500 subs our first year, maybe 2,000 subs the second year, then 23rd year, and then 100,000. And now we're about to cross 1 million subs in the next couple of weeks. And it grew into what it is today. And we chose one word. The one word was very simple. What is the one word I can talk about passionately for hours, for days, for months? And that one word was the word entrepreneur. And everything about Valuetainment came around that one word, which is being an entrepreneur.
That is very powerful. Would you say you started as an introvert and you became who you are, or were you always very passionate about what you did, Pat?
I was very shy. I was always very shy. I grew up, you know, my sister and my dad would tell you this was my famous thing I would do when I was shy, and I would put my head down. I was always hiding behind my dad's leg. I was not very vocal. I was very to myself. I wasn't the guy that necessarily would go out there and do all the things that some of these outgoing kids would do. But when my parents got a divorce, I was forced to be an extrovert. Because when I live in a refugee camp, if you're too timid, you're going to get jumped, you're going to get bullied, you're going to get pushed around. You have to kind of exude yourself and stand up for yourself, especially when you're living in an area where all these kids are escaping communism, they're escaping, you know, bad regimes, Yugoslavia at that time, Czech, you know, Slovenia, Albania, Poland, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, just everybody was in the same place. So you can pretty much see all these kids are raised in families that are feisty, that fight, that are angry, that are upset, that are heartbroken, that are, you know, how, all these emotions are in the kids. So we're going at it regularly. I learned how to stand up, and because my father figure wasn't there, from the age of 10 till 21 years old, that's 4,000 days. From the age of 10 till 21 years old, out of the 4,000 days, I saw my dad 200 days out of those 4,000 days. So I didn't have somebody. So I had to be the man of the household. Sometimes it was kind of weird because I had to be the father, I had to be the husband, I had to be the brother, even though I had an older sister. I was a young kid chasing my sister's boyfriends down, even though they were 10 years older than me. And that kind of gave me a bit of a toughness that I didn't have as a kid coming up. And then eventually, my dad always told me, never be afraid of the truth. So for me, once I get clear on a philosophy, you know, and I'm certain about this philosophy based on math and facts, I am very certain on imposing that philosophy and sharing it with other people. How they process it is on them. But that's where it went from being an introvert kind of to myself to realizing you got to kind of stand up for yourself. The world's an interesting place. You don't stand up for yourself, it's going to eat you up alive today.
Yes. Yeah, very true. And so this is interesting. What drove you though? What was that one thing that drove you to do all this? Was it a need? Was it a passion? Was it a calling? What do you think was the driving factor?
What age? What age are you asking about?
To do what you're doing now, to get where you are now. I don't know when it started. You know when it started, yes? What it might have been something that changed over time. Maybe it was a different thing that pushed you when you were young, a different thing when you pushed you when you were older. Maybe it was, but what would you say was that thing or things in this case that drove you to succeed?
You know, that's a great question. I would say as a kid, it would be the fact that when in an Armenian, you know, you're half Greek, half Armenian, you got some Armenian in you. When in the Armenian Middle Eastern community, my mother's side's Armenian, my dad's side is Syrian, and I'm in Iran. When a Middle Eastern community, their parents get a divorce, it's very big. I mean, it is seen as one person's not worthy and the other person is doing this, and their kids are going to amount to being drug dealers and drug addicts and bad kids. You know, don't associate yourself with them. And so for me, I had to learn, let me shut this thing down. Give me 1 second, man. I don't know why this is doing this.
That is okay.
Quit Outlook. Okay, did we quit Outlook? I think I just quit Outlook. Okay, perfect. So in a Middle Eastern community, when you're raising that kind of a family, everybody would say, Pat's going to turn out to be a bad kid. So a lot of the parents would say, stay away from Pat. Stay away from him. I didn't have good grades. I was always like a little bit reckless. There was a certain level of pride for me. I'll never forget one day I sat down my family, and we were always poor. We were always broke. We never had money. I mean, I grew up a welfare kid. You know, my dad would give me allowance when I would see him once every other week for one day, and my mom would take the $10 from me to be able to do whatever other things she could do. So I would go late at night. I had a shopping cart, and I would go all over Glendale to all the different trash cans at like 14 years old. And I'd collect all the bottles, 5-liter, 2-liter bottles and the cans. And then I'd go to Albertsons at 2 o'clock in the morning and I would recycle. And this is how I used to make money at 13, 14 years old. And I started selling shirts. I started selling hats. I started selling a bunch of other things. But one day I sat down with my family and I said, listen, let me explain something to you guys. You guys have to realize this last name, Bet David, has gone through a lot. And if I have to die doing this, the world is going to know the last name, Bet David. I promise you. This was 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I was upset. I was annoyed with my family. I was very frustrated. We were at my sister's place, and I just called everybody out. I said, listen, we have a special blood. Our bloodline goes back to the Assyrian Empire, the Armenian Empire. The Assyrians were the original Christians. The Assyrians were the original warriors. If you study history, these guys were people that were incredible, incredible leaders. generals, and that blood is in our blood. We can't do nothing about it. And my responsibility is to make sure that the world's going to know we made the right decision coming to America. So the fire came from that part. And then obviously throughout the process, my dad had a heart attack. He almost died. When my dad had a heart attack and he almost died, I was devastated. I wanted to do something about it, and I got to work. And believe it or not, there's like small little issues like this that brought the fire, but it was fairly simple on what I wanted to do. You know, look, I've had a lot of breakups, okay? Girl breakups. They broke up with me. I broke up with them. I've had girls break my heart and go with another man, and I've broken girls' heart and I've gone with another woman. And so, you know, those situations taught me a lot. And I used to first blame them. I'd say, this girl's a this, she's a pop, she's a blah, all this other stuff. And then you realize, first of all, you were a dick is what you were. You know what I'm saying? I was an absolute asshole to one of them. And then I took that same philosophy in life. I realized, listen, businesses don't work, companies don't work, relationships don't work, some partnerships don't work. I can't just sit there and think about all the things you did wrong. I mean, what does that serve me? Nothing, because I can't change you. The only thing I can look at is look at what I did wrong and change that and make adjustments there. I think sometimes we don't like to do that because no one likes to be wrong. You don't like to be wrong. I don't like to be wrong. The most humble person in the world, Mother Teresa, doesn't like to be wrong. So everybody wants to be able to be right most of the time. But you know, the thing I learned is I just sat back and I said, Pat, to be honest with you, this didn't work because you didn't do your part. That didn't work because you over-negotiated, and I've done that. I've had some hardcore negotiations where I over-negotiated and I got exactly what I wanted, and then it led to a point of them not making money, and they just said, we're not making money, and they had to cut the relationship. So all of those things taught me a lot of different lessons to realize, what is it you're doing that you would have done differently, and don't do it next time. Change it.
Yeah. Let me ask you at this point, Pat, what does success mean to you? Because a lot of people define success in different ways, or it may even be multiple things. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to Pat?
Alignment. I think it's really alignment. You know, alignment. And I'll explain to you what I mean by alignment. I did a video this week called 10 Reasons Why to Love Capitalism, right?
Yes.
And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're always imposing capitalism. It's a cold-hearted, you know, philosophy. It's hurt a lot of people, et cetera, et cetera. I said, look, here's one of the points I explained the concept of capitalism. I know people who work for nonprofit organizations who are happy, okay? But they think a guy like me is nuts because I'm building a business and I'm going nonstop, PHP, Valuetainment, running around, traveling, 80-hour weeks, 100-hour weeks. He's crazy. He can't be happy. There's no way it's even possible for Patrick Bet-David to be happy. Then you look at somebody and say, well, this guy's just an executive. He makes 200 grand a year. How can he be happy? Why does he think so small? But he's happy. He doesn't care to be a CEO. He doesn't care to be a founder. He's totally happy being where he's at. So then you look at another person. I remember Phil Hellmuth. One time, he's the #1 poker player in the world. He's won the most bracelets. He said poker is a game that a lot of people in Vegas, professionals, live there, and they make 200 grand a year, and they live very good lives, but they don't want to be the greatest. He says, I can't live like that, but they're happy. So what's the point of the question about what does success mean to you? It's alignment. If what I believe in matches and is aligned with the way I live, I'm happy. That's success to me. But if you are an incredibly super competitive, ambitious person, yet you're very lazy, you are bitter. That's not successful, okay? That's a formula for disaster. You want to find the most miserable person in the world, find the most ambitious, competitive person who is lazy, wants respect, wants people to look at him and say, oh my gosh, you're so amazing, you know everything, but they don't want to work. That's a recipe for disaster. So you got to make sure you're aligned with your views and the way you behave and the way you live your life. Because if that's aligned, all the other stuff is irrelevant.
That was one of the best answers I've ever heard on what success means to someone. By the way, I watched both of those videos, both the ones with Helmuth and the one about capitalism. I'll tell you this about me, about politics, and maybe it's because I'm in Greece, maybe it's because I'm traveling. I try not to pay attention, and the reason I try not to is because I don't know enough about it. Now, of course, when I get to another level, when I reach another level, the Patrick Bet-David, the Grant Cardone, the other level, maybe I have to start learning. But right now, for me, it's just distraction. But your videos have really opened up my eyes on capitalism, looking into it. And I've even started saying I'm a capitalist without maybe knowing exactly what that means yet.
I understand. Now, you know, I read a quote one time, because I was similar as well. I could care less about politics. I didn't want to know anything about it until I read once a quote by Plato. He said, those who think it's foolish to study politics will be led by fools who do. Let me say that one more time. Those who think it's foolish to study politics will be governed by fools who do. So if you don't study it, fools are going to lead your nation and maybe file bankruptcy and hurt you economically. So especially the country you live in, it is very, very important for you to study economy, because your country needs people to be more vocal and talk about the fact that Greece needs capitalism. I was in Greece, you know that, 2 months ago.
I was trying to get in touch with you. I was in Poland.
Yeah, I was in Athens. I remember that. And I was in Athens. And I had, like, you know, all these guys show up at Acropolis. I told them, I said, what you guys need in Greece is capitalism. Capitalism is going to save Greece, nothing else. Not a person, not a politician. The concept of capitalism is going to completely resurrect Greece. Some of the greatest minds in the world are from your country. You realize all over the world, we study the people that were from your country. Everything is about your country. I mean, who hasn't walked the streets of your country? Think about it. Paul, all of these people we study has to do with your country. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. That country needs the spirit of capitalism.
Yeah.
I'd love to see smaller communities getting built up, and you guys just get together and debate each other and challenge each other and start getting the group to be more and more and more and more and more. And it's purely around the topic of entrepreneurship and capitalism.
So let me ask you something else. Do you think anyone can succeed in life?
At what level? So it becomes a level, meaning, for example, are you a sports guy?
Me, I used to do some kickboxing and some working out. I used to do a little bit of bodybuilding and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. I think there's 3 levels for all of us, every human being. There's the underachiever, there's the achiever, there's the overachiever. So let's talk about the 3. But these 3 are not the same for everybody. For example, let's look at a person like LeBron James, okay? LeBron James is 6'8", 260 pounds, and he jumps 44 inches, and the guy runs so fast, right? So for him to be an overachiever, he has to do 10 times more than Steph Curry does, because Steph Curry is 6'1", 160, 70 pounds, and he can't jump that high. He's a little guy. So Steph Curry doesn't have to do as much as LeBron James has to do to be an overachiever, if that makes any sense. So what am I saying here? Well, you take somebody who, say for instance, is 5'3", okay? And they didn't do anything crazy in their lives. They didn't do anything insane in their lives. They don't run that fast. They're not that strong. They're just a regular guy that's 5'3". His name is Muggsy Bogues. Muggsy Bogues was 5'3". He played in the NBA for 10 years. Do you realize how insane of a story that is? That's what you call an overachiever at the highest level. I think a lot of times we try to compare ourselves like, can everybody be Donald Trump? Can everybody be LeBron James? Can everybody be Barack Obama? Can everybody be this person, that person, this person? No. I'm trying to challenge people to reach their capacity. And your capacity is not the same as everybody's capacity. There are some people that are 10 times more talented than you. Their capacity is higher than yours. But your goal is to reach the capacity of you, not everybody else's. You reach your capacity, you're an overachiever. Just whatever you do in life, don't be an underachiever.
Nice. So do you think anyone can then be successful as an entrepreneur? And I know you answered this, but maybe a little bit more specifically, like, And then an entrepreneur, get out of school, which a lot of people are talking about, which I agree and not agree with. It depends on the person. But yeah, as an entrepreneur, do you think entrepreneur has a special mindset, some capabilities, some traits that that help him become an entrepreneur in general?
Yeah, I think everybody can be an entrepreneur, but again, at what level? You know, how big of a business can you build? You know,
Patrick Bet-David's level.
Yeah, no, I think anybody can. But remember, for me, I had a crystal clear vision. Listen, let me put it to you this way, okay? You got two people that are about to fight each other, okay? One guy is 6'4", 240 pounds. He's living a happy life. Nothing happened in his life that's wrong. The other guy is 5'6", 130 pounds, okay? His mother died yesterday, and his dad died yesterday in a car accident. And his only child died last week, and his wife died a year ago. If I say something to him and we get into a fight, okay, he has no reason to live. He'll do anything to hurt me. I don't have that kind of a passion like the one he has to say, who are you talking to? Do you know what I'm going through right now? His level of anger and emotion is a lot higher than mine. I don't want to fight. He just bumped into me. We start fighting. He's not even thinking. All he's thinking about is my wife, my kid, my mom, my dad are not here. I don't really have nothing to lose, right? Some of the most dangerous people in the world are those who are clear on what they want. Let me say this one more time. The most dangerous people in the world are the ones who are so clear on what they want. 99% of the world has no clue what they want. They have no clue what they want. When I tell you no clue what they want, they don't have any clue what they want. They don't know what they want in women, in a man, in finances, in life, in a marriage, with their health, with their brand, with their friendship, with their relationships. They're not clear. Why are we not clear? Because this is keeping us too busy from asking the real questions. This right here. This keeps us so busy from taking timeouts. Even in sports, they take timeouts. Even in, you know, every sporting thing you watch, they take timeouts. In Hollywood, they take timeouts and say, again, do it again. Now, this time I want you to show more emotion, as if, remember that one time in your life when somebody did this to you? I want you to go there. I want you to come from that place. Time out. Do it again. Do it again. I want to see more passion. Do it again. In life, we're just like, 88 years old, you're dead. What did I want out of life? I don't know. So to answer your question for you, rather than worrying about if somebody can build it as big as me, spend more time asking the two questions. Who do you want to be in life? What do you want? Once you know those two answers, then re-engineer it backwards and figure out what you got to go out there and do. But I can guarantee you, more worrying about trying to be like me, answer those two questions for yourself. Who do you want to be? What do you want? The rest doesn't even matter.
So re-engineer and go backwards. I like that. So, okay. So what would it actually take to succeed? And I am talking about, and Pat, I know I'm talking about traits right now. What do people, okay, they need to go back to re-engineer to be able to succeed. They need to understand that success is from inspiration, but usually desperation, from what you said before. It's a driving force. What do people need? What does it actually take? Because some people want to succeed, but they might not have had a tough life. They might have not had a cruel life. Some people have succeeded with a great life. They just succeeded.
Of course. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. By the way, please realize this. Not everybody needs to have a tough life to make it. This is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying generally, the people that make it at the highest level, they typically have some stories of very, 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 very hard times that they had a chip that they wanted to prove. Look at Steve Jobs. His biological mother gave him up for adoption. The mother that raised him was Armenian, but that's not his mother. Can you imagine in Steve Jobs' mind? He's like, my own mother didn't want me and gave me up. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that I should have been kept by my mother. You don't know that. I don't know that. But look at the drive that he has, right? Mark Zuckerberg fell in love with this Asian girl that didn't want to be with him. Every morning he woke up, he would check her profile to see what she does. He didn't care about all the money, everything he did because he wanted that girl. What eventually ends up happening? He eventually gets it. Bill Gates was a nerd. Everybody made fun of him in high school. All those jocks that got the pretty girls would make fun of him. He thought about all those things and relived it. Becomes the richest man in the world for 20 years until Jeff Bezos took it over. What these guys have in common is clarity. They are clear. They are very clear on what they want. And most people don't have that. So you asked the question, and I got a perfect answer for you. You ask, does everybody have to go through hard times to go out there and be successful at the highest level? No. It's two things that cause us to change. One is accidental, which means what? Something bad happens in our lives, we change. A woman leaves us, a spouse dies, mom, dad die, we go to prison, we see something harsh, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to change. But we didn't do it. It was an accident that caused us to change. And the other one is intentional. Intentional doesn't require an accident to happen. Unfortunately, most of the time, change only happens after something happens to us, rather than we initiating change. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. It does make sense. Okay. What about things you need to learn, like an arsenal, like, for example, sales, rhetoric, psychology, things that you would recommend they learn or get into to be able to succeed?
I think everything in life is solving for X. Everything in life is solving for X. Let me explain to what I mean by solving for X. Okay. So I'm about to share something with you that for the rest of your life, you will use. For the rest of your life, you will use. And by the way, it's going to make your business meetings better, your conversation with your wife better, your conversation with your friends better, your conversations in sports debates better, in politics better, with your CPA, with your accountant, with your doctor, with your health, with your personal trainer, with everything. Moving forward, whatever you do, whatever problem you're trying to solve, ask, solve for X. X equals what? For example, when I was 16 years old, I was working out. Why? Because I was very skinny. When I was 14, I was 6'1", 130 pounds. Let me say that one more time. 6'1", 130 pounds. And my name wasn't Tyra Banks. Because 6'1" is 130 pounds. You're supposed to be a model and a woman. I'm a man and I'm 130 pounds. So I started working out because I wanted to be a man. And there was a commercial back then. And it was a kid. He would stand like this and he would say, I used to be young, bullied, rejected by girls, and then I drank milk, and look at me now, right? Mm-hmm. I said, man, I want to get big as well. So I started working out. X to me was what? I'm tough. Then when I went to 23 years old and I was working out, X equaled 6 packs, because I'd go to clubs, I'd take my shirt off, I wanted to get laid. So X equaled sex to me, okay? Today, why do I exercise? X equals stamina and energy. It's completely different today than before. I'm not trying to get laid today. I get laid every night I want because I'm married, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to get bullied or all that other stuff because I'm not in high school. I'm a big guy now. I don't have to worry about that, right? X has changed. So what does that mean? You sit in a meeting and you're trying to fire somebody. Solve for X. What are we really solving for? Are we trying to fire this guy because of what? Is he actually not doing his job right? If we fire him today, do we have a replacement? What are his responsibilities? What is he doing? Is that going to be replaced? But why are we firing this guy? Well, what he did, we don't need him anymore at this level. Okay, maybe that's what we were solving for. If that's the case, then let's fire him. But what else is it? Is he emotion? Are we upset? Are we hurt? Is our ego hurt? What is it, right? We have to go through that process. The number one skill set, I believe, you and I, as human beings, and I'm telling you right now, for me with my 3 kids, the number one skill set I'm going to teach these kids is how to process issues. And the way you process issues is always solve for X. For example, faith, X. Is it who is God? Or is your question what happens after we die? So what's the question? What are you trying to solve for? X, you're trying to be a millionaire. Why? Are you trying to be a millionaire because it's cool? Are you trying to be a millionaire because you want to use that money to buy a house and put big parties together? Are you trying to be a millionaire because you want to take that money and do what? What is X? Mm-hmm. And the moment you can answer that question of X, marriage, relationship, friendship, business, board meetings, whatever, not only do you save a lot of time, you save a lot of money, but you're also able to lead yourself and other people to a point that you actually want to go to, the best possible situation, rather than wasting your time for years not knowing what you're solving for. So number one skill set you and I got to learn, Paul, is solving for X. And by the way, I've been working on this book with Simon & Schuster for the last 12 months, and the book is going to be How We Solve for X. Our entire formula, the last 15 years, on how we solve for X, I'm putting in the book and I'm going to put it out there for people to read. You'll be able to use that book and say, this is how I'm going to solve for X myself. It's a very simple formula that is proven that you'll be able to use in every possible situation.
I'm looking very forward to that book, Pat. I will definitely get a few copies and also suggest it. I'm excited about it, actually. Did you lose friends along the way to get where you are? Because all this mindset, all this energy, all this passion that's coming from you, it takes dedication. And did you lose friends along the way? Did you lose something you loved along the way? Are there sacrifices to be made to succeed in life and business?
You know, I just had my 40th birthday party last week in LA. And I wanted to put a party together with like 600 people, rent out a place, spend a few $100,000, put like one of those Hollywood parties together. And then my wife and Maral, my director of finance, sat me down and they said, Pat, what do you want? Again, solve for X. What do you want? And they did it to me, right? Said, you're turning 40, you know, rather than trying to do this for everybody, what do you want? Okay. Do you want to do it for everybody and put a big party for them to have fun? Or do you want to do where you want to have a good time yourself? I sat there and I said, shit, these guys are right. So I just want to invite the people I love. That's what I want to do. So we came out with a list of 55, 60 people that came in LA. And we just had it was a very emotional birthday. It was freaking amazing. You know, my health and guidance teacher was there. This woman changed my life from 10th grade. When I was a schmuck at 14 years old, she believed in me. And that's the reason why I joined the Army. I had my two best buddies that I worked at Burger King together with. They came, they're telling stories about how, you know, I would wear medium shirts because they didn't have any big shirts for my size. And Burger King never made me a chef, a cashier because I talked too much. So I was a cook. I would make Whoppers in the back. I never became a cashier at Burger King. But it was a moment. And a lot of people weren't invited. Friends who I was in high school friends with, they weren't invited. And people said, you know, why isn't that person here? Why isn't this person here? I said, listen, I'm at a point in my life that I'm only interested in having friendships with people that also want to be friends with me. I understand there are benefits on being friends with a guy like me because I have contacts, I have money, I have all this other stuff. I'm not trying to be a big shot. I don't want to impose myself around my peers. The people who know who I am, they know I've been like this since I was 18. I'm just Patrick, man. You go out with me, we're going to have a good time. I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking about. It's just my vision got bigger and I got clear on what I wanted. But I lost a lot of friends. Some of the friends I lost because this past week I was with Robert Greene. And I don't know if you know who Robert Greene is, the author of 40 Laws of Power. And there are a lot of different books. His new book, Laws of Human Nature.
Yeah.
One of the chapters, he talks about envy. And in this chapter, he explains what we envy and how to identify other people who envy us, right? And he said, you can always tell when somebody else envies you. There's two exercises on how to find out if someone envies you or not. One of them is tell them some good news about your life. When you tell them, you can tell a smirk of unhappiness on their face, but it only lasts half a second. And if you're smart enough, you can catch it. He says, second thing is tell them something bad happened to your life. And you can see there's a half a second of happiness because they're kind of, God, this guy's going through a hard time. He says, you can pretty much tell which friends of yours want the best for you and which friends of yours don't want the best for you. In life, you got to be very careful with picking the right friends, man. Sometimes the guy you've been friends with for 15 years secretly doesn't want to see you win big, and you don't know it because sometimes they say love is blind. I believe friendship is also blind at times. Sometimes we get blinded by those close to us who don't want the best for us and is holding us back, and you got to move on to the next level. Very hard to do, but I've done it many, many times in my career. Wasn't easy, so always paid off.
It's happened to me a lot of times, actually. Do you agree that you can also be envious of characteristics and not just material things or the person? I've never really been jealous or envy of a person of what he has, just what he's like, and I try to become like him.
Yes, absolutely, and I had to identify that. That's amazing you say that because, for instance, we could be envious of a guy who is extremely handsome, beautiful eyes, and,
like me? I'm sorry.
Perfect face and, got all the perfect features, the baby face nose and the lips and a great body and all this stuff. And you could be envious of that, and eventually one of the things I had to learn growing up is I can't envy what's not going to change. It's just not going to change, I eventually had to make the decision to realize I have been dealt the hand that I've been dealt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And I'm playing my hand. And sometimes I have to win with a bad hand, whether I have to bluff or whether I have to go all in or whether I have to intimidate or whether I have to be strategic or whether I have to know who I'm facing. I have to play my hand. And you got to play your hand. If you spend too much time thinking about what other people haven't cared, I can appreciate it. For instance, Barack Obama is a smooth talker, man.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh, the guy's a smooth talker. Trump is unbelievably fiery in the way he responds and how he knows to go from, all these things he said about people. Jeb Bush is low energy Jeb Bush, right? Hillary Clinton, crooked Hillary. CNN, fake news. He is so good at those things that he does. And other people try to do that. It just doesn't work because it's not them, right? You look at Reagan. He would speak and it was like humor and joke and laughter. He just loved it. Clinton, so smooth. Bush, oh my gosh, I guess I made a mistake. You want to have a beer? He just had that. So you eventually have to kind of figure out who you are and just try to make that your brand. Try to be envious of the people that you're never going to have that naturally. It'll rarely work out. I was in a company where there was this one guy, everybody wanted to talk like. He was a great speaker. And I would see guys that try to speak like him. It never worked out. Man, that guy's so fake. They would try to do the whole thing, and it never worked out. And I said, listen, man, my style of speaking is so different. I'm just going to talk the way I talk. And this is how I talk. And everybody said, wow, Pat talks in a complete different way. No one speaks like he does. Because I think my style is, I talk as if I'm having a cup of coffee with you. So I could speak to an audience of 15,000, but my goal is for you to think it's just me and you in the room. Mm-hmm. And that may be a different style than somebody that's talking, and that's fine. But you got to find your signature and stick to that. So yes, I've experienced that before in the past, and I realized I just got to play the hand that I've been dealt, and I'm going to do my best to win with this hand. I don't need to worry about what you got in your hand. I'm going to win with my hand.
It's funny you just mentioned Trump. Actually, I've read a lot of Trump's books. I admire him a lot as a businessman. As a politician, I guess we have to wait and see. Seems like he's doing okay. There is one thing I wanted to ask you, and it just came to me now. I remember George Bush Jr. talking about something very seriously on TV, right? And he said something serious. I can't remember what it was. I think it was about the war or something. And then he's like, okay, are we done? Now watch me do this drive. And he was playing golf. And I thought that was funny. My question is this, was that intentional? And when I say this, let me explain. So you have people watching the news, and obviously you have the enemies, the people that you're at war with, watching the news as well. Do you want to give that perception? Are things done in a certain way in order to give this character, to give this signal? I mean, look at Donald Trump. There's a lot of things he does people say is insane, but you know what? Maybe that's what he needs to communicate to the other side. And sometimes I think we judge too much with knowing too little, if that makes sense. And I just wanted to ask your opinion on that. It just came to me right now.
It's good. That's a good question. I would tell you this. Here's what you have to realize. These guys are not stupid, okay? I think a lot of times the media thinks these people are stupid. You may disagree with them, but they're no dummies. Trump, Obama, Clinton, Bush, Senior, Junior, Reagan, Carter, Nixon, Ford, Kennedy, they're no dummies. They kind of know what they're doing. They got there by knowing what they're doing. Some of them, one of the things you have to learn to do as a politician is to deflect. It's a very special skill set. You have to learn how to deflect. Hillary Clinton got asked recently about Monica Lewinsky, and she immediately said, well, she was an adult at that time, 21 years old, so Monica Lewinsky knew what she was doing. But why is it that you guys are not asking about the current president and what he's doing with Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels? Why are you asking about my husband, right? Now, that got a lot of heat because 21-year-old adult doesn't necessarily mean that it's okay for a powered man to do what he did. So she got a lot of heat from Me Too movement. But Trump does that all the time. What do you think about this? Well, how about the fact that Obama did that? You have to learn in politics how to deflect. I enjoy watching sports interviews after the games. And the reason why I like it is because Yeah, you learn a lot about people, and you learn a lot about how to handle pressure type situations. There's a lot of questions you don't want to answer in life. A lot of them. You just don't want to answer in life. And most of these politicians master the art of deflecting and distracting. And humor is typically one of them.
Nice. Yeah, I also noticed when they were talking about his handshake, and that was another reason. I actually made a video about that because everyone was making fun of his handshake. I knew exactly what he was doing. Let me ask you something, Pat. Do you have any advice for people struggling right now? Like right now they're struggling. What advice could you give them?
In what area? Financially, family? What is it?
You know what? In financially and in business, both. I think that most struggles in life are financial, even though they could be struggling for other things. I think financial is the most common one sought after on YouTube.
Yeah, I would say, again, for me, Software X-Man. You know, what is causing? I had a guy that came here and he sat down and he said, 3 years ago, I was doing $200,000 a year. He owns a transportation company. He said, I started watching Valuetainment videos. And one of the videos you talked about how to scale. And he said, I never looked at the math part of my business and what helped me grow the business. I was spending more time thinking about administrative stuff rather than my sales. So he said, I went from $200,000 a year to doing $15 million per year. 15 million is a solid number to go from 200,000 to 15 million. And the guy's 35-year-old Assyrian guy of Chicago. I've never met him before. He's watched every single Valuetainment episode out there. If you are struggling business-wise, pay attention to the math. Every business has a formula. Every business has a formula. The first question I ask people when they tell me what they do is this: who's your customer? What do you mean? Give me your ideal customer. I don't know what you're asking. Who's your ideal customer? What do they look like? I think my ideal customer, you can't say I think. You have to know. I was with Chip Wilson this past Saturday. Chip Wilson is the founder of Lululemon. He is worth $3.9 billion. If you search him up, Chip Wilson, 3.9. He's Canadian, by the way. So I asked him, who's your ideal customer? You ready for his answer? Here's his answer. My ideal customer is born on September 28th. What? It's a woman, September 28th, a 32-year-old woman who owns a cat, who does yoga, makes good money, is thinking about getting married, but she doesn't need a man. It's only if she chooses to. That's my ideal customer. There's a reason why he's worth $3.9 billion. That guy didn't get lucky being worth $39 billion. One of the questions I asked him was the following. I said in 1994, 1998, when he first got started, 99% of his customers were women. Only 1% were men. Today, Lululemon is 30% men customers. That's a big number to go from 1% to 30% in only 20 years. I said, what did you do? He said, well, I sat down and I realized what men wanted. He said, for women, the reason why Lululemon did very good is because he said, I would go sit by coffee shops, by yoga stores, yoga places. And I would listen to all the women, what they would say after the yoga class. And I would hear them, they would say, I'm embarrassed to wear my yoga pants. Why? You know, because when I wear my yoga pants, the thing shows, what do you call it? The toe, what do you call it?
Camel toe.
Camel toe shows. Yeah, camel toe. Camel toe shows. And I feel very uncomfortable. And he sat there and says, oh my gosh, that's why they don't wear their yoga pants to work in other places. If I can fix the camel toe issue, they'll wear it. So he went and brought his engineers. And he said, we're fixing this camel toe issue. What do we need to do? So they started cutting it all these different ways. Finally, they would wear it. Camel toe is absolutely gone. Girls would take it after class, wouldn't show up. Women started saying, the reason why we're Lululemon is because camel toe is gone. I can wear it in the streets. I'm no longer embarrassed because no one can see it. See, I know I'm not trying to be funny or...
No, it's a very good point. It's an amazing point.
This is the details. A lot of times business owners are just thinking you're going to start a business, you're going to make millions. You got to pay attention to the details. You got to know who your customers. You got to know the math of your business. You got to know the sales aspect of your business. You got to know where to find your customers. It isn't just one thing or another thing. Now, if you're asking me about, personal life and family life, look, if I'm at work and I have a lot of stuff in my mind from family that I'm dealing with, and my girl and my boyfriend, my kids, my mom, my dad, all of that, if I am constantly consumed with that, and I'm not trying to figure out a way to solve that, my business is going to take a hit. That has to be solved. I can't leave dead weight. I'm not a fan of dead weight. Dead weight is disastrous. Dead weight is disastrous. What is dead weight? Dead weight is a pending issue that's been sitting there for 9 months that's not solved. Personal life or business life. You got to get rid of all the dead weight in your life. It's that conversation you need to have with your girl. It's a conversation you need to have with your mom. It's that conversation you need to have with your brother. It's that conversation you need to have with your friend who's talking shit behind your back. And you got to get over it because you keep thinking about it. So either you have to be able to not think about it or you have to address it. If you can't control it because you keep thinking about it, you have to address it. Hey, bro, I heard you said this behind my back. Why would you say something like that? I thought we were friends. I never said that. Dude, I know you said this. Why'd you say this? Well, got it. Then good. Dude, we're good. We don't need to be friends anymore. All good, man. I appreciate you being honest. All the best to you. But that dead weight is gone. Dead weight a lot of times prevents people from winning big. So if it's business, figure out one of those things with your customers, the math, all that other stuff. If it's personal, typically dead weight holds people back. So one of those two things.
And I guess that could be the key to take you from a few 100,000 a year to a few million, and also from a life to a happy life. Yeah. Let's talk about Valuetainment a little bit. We talked about how it was born and everything. What was the X equals Y for Valuetainment? What was the mission of Valuetainment, if you will? Because I don't see you selling anything on Valuetainment, unless it's yourself, your image, your persona. But what was the actual?
Yeah, so I give you internally and then externally. So let me tell you from my end. Number one, when I first started creating content, I'm the guy, how do I explain this to you? I don't want to be with a girl if she doesn't want to be with me. A lot of girls want to be with me. I don't want to force a girl to like me. I've never been a fan of that, okay? If you don't like me, go do your thing, man. I want to be with a girl that wants to be with me as much as I want to be with her. Now, my attorney, my CPA, people who work here, employees, salespeople, I want people who believe in what we're doing. I'm not trying to force you to believe in what we're doing. I want you to choose to be here because you believe truly in what we're doing, right? Okay. So when we started doing Valuetainment, I asked myself one simple question. Am I good enough? What do you mean? Am I good enough to be a brand? I don't know. I know some people may say, well, Pat, you're confident. People are going to be like, oh, this guy's going to do this guy's going to do that. Maybe I'm confident because the people telling me I'm good are the people that are my friends who work with me on a daily basis who believe in me. And maybe they're full of shit. I'm not going to take their word for it. I want to know what the audience is going to say. So I started creating content. And I started noticing the audience says, we don't like it when you do this. We like this. We don't like this. We don't like that. And then next thing you know, we tested. How about when I talk about this? How about when I talk about this? How about when we do this? They don't like this. They could care less about this. They love this. So then we got our voice. Once we found our voice and there was an audience for it, I realized there's an opportunity to scale. So then we said, we got 10,000 subscribers. Why don't we try to get to 20? And then we got to 40. I said, 40, let's try to do 100. And we got to 100. Why don't we try to get to 250,000? Oh my gosh, we got 250,000 subs. Maybe we can get to 1 million. And then we went for 1 million. And then who knows after 1 million, 10 million. I don't know what the next thing is that we're going to do. So that was the internal. I wanted to know if I am worthy of making it with the content that I have. Second thing was, I believe the folks in Greece need capitalism. I believe the folks in Iran need to understand how entrepreneurship works. I believe the underground people in North Korea who all follow Valuetainment, they need this message. I believe Brazil, I got a big audience in Brazil. Brazil needs Valuetainment. I believe Argentina needs Valuetainment. I believe a lot of countries in Europe that are socialist need Valuetainment. Italy, Spain, they need Valuetainment. As long as this message is spreading. I got 3 young kids, a 6, a 5, and a 2-year-old. I don't want the younger generation to get confused thinking just because their teacher tells them that capitalism sucks, that it really sucks. The teacher says capitalism sucks because that teacher who's been a teacher for 10 years is never going to get fired. And she can say whatever they want. And the first person they want to judge is the people that go create jobs and they make more money than them. And they're envious of them. So they bash them. And these naive kids actually believe it. I wanted Valuetainment to be another place where they can go and say, maybe my teacher's not right. Maybe my teacher has no clue what they're talking about. Hey, teacher, what do you think about Patrick Bet-David? He's an idiot. He's crazy. All he cares about is money. Watch. Look what he shows. Look at the Ferrari. Look at the Lambo. Look at the Rolls Royce. He doesn't care about you. He just cares about making money. He doesn't care who you are. And that kid who's 19 years old internally experiences, is the teacher right? Or is Patrick right? Who's right? And that gives the kid an alternative to make a decision for themselves. Because currently we don't have an alternative. It's just education. Now they have an alternative. And by the way, Valuetainment is going to end up being a very big movement around the world for capitalism. We're going to start doing our conferences. People are asking me about sales courses. For 3 years, they've asked me for sales courses. I still haven't put it together. Mario and I finally have made a commitment to get away and finalize a sales course. I got 40 pages of notes on how I sell, how I negotiate my 10 unique closes I have. I've had it there for 2 years. I still haven't put the video. It's going to be a $500 course online, and I'm going to do live Valuetainment conferences. Ticket prices will be from $1,000 to $20,000. $20,000 is when the board wants to come sit with me and look at their numbers, their portfolios, things like that. But we'll be doing that. It's going to have to be a business because people have to pay. We're going to introduce a Patreon here soon because some people want private time with me. They don't just want to do that. And so we're going in that direction. But for now, those were the two reasons why we started Valuetainment.
Well, you need to just scale up. If you want to spread a message, it takes money. Yeah, it takes something to be able to do it. Plus, you're giving something to help people. I'm totally behind that. So let me ask you something, Pat. Did you have any mentors in your life?
A ton of them. I mean, the list is a long list of mentors that I had in my life. You know, I mean, you can go back, the lady who helped me join the Army, Miss Sinclair. My number one mentor in my life is my father. My dad was just an incredible human being. When I joined the Army, Drill Sergeant Purtle, so funny, yesterday, Drill Sergeant Purtle posted a picture of himself on Facebook, and I typed in, a leader. This guy knew me at 18 years old. He came to my face right here, in my face. He said, where you from, boy? I said, LA. He said, you think you're a gangster, huh? Are you a tough guy? You a tough guy? You want me to kick your ass right in front of everybody? And he's like shorter than me. I said, no, Drill Sergeant. I'm going to beat the F out of you. I'm going to kick your ass right now. Who do you think you are? Like he's going at it in my face. I had another guy named Drill Sergeant Green. Here's how he would speak. Hey, Paul, how are you? Hey, Patrick, I think you think you're tough. Here's what I'd like to do with you and 4 of you. I want you guys to get in this Hummer. I'm going to take you guys somewhere. And we're going to have a special conversation together. So we got in the Hummer. And he took
I don't know what's scarier.
30 miles into the woods. So we're going to the woods. And he gets out. He says, guys, get out of the Hummer. And by the way, we're all big guys. And he's not. He's 5'7". Says, everybody get out of the Hummer. And we got out. And he starts unbuttoning his jacket. I'm like, what is this guy doing? He takes his jacket off and he hangs it on a mirror. And he says, okay, who wants to go first? We're like, what do you mean? Listen, I'm not your sergeant right now. I'm just a guy in the streets. You don't need to worry about punching me in the face and what's going to happen. Who wants to fight me first? So we're all looking at this guy like, what is going on here? He says, who wants to go first? So we're all looking at each other. We're like, dude, who's going to go first? Like, listen, we don't want to hit you. We don't want to hurt you. So don't worry about hurting me. I'm a big man. You're going to be fine. So one by one, we said we'll go. Let me tell you, he beat the shit out of us. He beat the shit out of us so bad. And then here's what he said. Listen, is it clear that moving forward, you listen to what I tell you? Is this going to stay here between the 5 of us? Yes, Drill Sergeant Green. Get in the Hummer and let's go back. By the way, never punched us in the face so he left a bruise. It was all in the ribs.
Oh, wow.
It was so smart. It was all in the rib. We couldn't breathe. So we went back. We're like, oh my gosh, Drill Sergeant Green. Like he became our God for like 3 months. Like we would never say anything to this man because we knew. Eventually we found out this guy was like a 5-degree jiu-jitsu black belt and he was a killer of a guy. That guy was another man, another man named Rich, who was a very spiritual man. He taught me about what it is to be a man. Brian Heflin taught me about hard work. Cisco taught me about not giving up. It's a long list of them. I mean, I can name you so many names, but absolutely, I'm a byproduct of the men and women in my life that challenged me to get to where I'm at today.
So mentors are very important in your life. I guess listening and getting the message they give is even more important, yeah?
Yeah, you got to find the right mentor first. Now, I like the T theory. The T theory is the way to go when you're looking at mentors, and it's 3 different things. There are mentors out there that have technical knowledge. That's the T. They have technical knowledge. They're well-read. right? They went to school, they're doctors, PhD, master, they've read a lot of business books. Then number two is people who have experience that have watched somebody else. For instance, I work closely with Steve Jobs. I work closely with Zuckerberg. I work directly with the billionaire. I work directly with this guy, and I can tell you how he was. So it's not the individual, but they witnessed somebody else do it. And then the last one, the letter A, is application. You're actually dealing with Steve Jobs, who has the theory, the experience, and the application. So he's not telling you anything, just the book. He's telling you from what he's done, what worked and what didn't work. If you find the trifecta type of mentor, it's perfection.
Wow. Okay. So Pat, what does a typical day look like for you right now?
I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Typically, I sleep at 12:30, 1 o'clock. I'm trying to sleep earlier. I'm having a hard time going to sleep earlier. My mind is going a lot. Last night, you can tell from my voice, this is not my real voice. I've lost a little bit of my voice because when we were in LA. So last night I slept at 10:30. I could tell you in the last 100 nights, I've slept at 10:30 twice, maybe. Okay, I don't sleep at 10:30. So 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock is when I sleep. I woke up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then I go through my news that I read. There's 3 news things that I read: Morning Brew, Business Insider, and CNBC Squawk. Those are the 3 that I read. And then I do my cardio, I do my weights, I start my day, and I'm off to the races. And that's what I do pretty much Monday through Friday. Saturdays I work, I come to the office, and Sundays I'm fully off.
Would you say there's a morning rituals or morning habits, or is there something else you do within that time? Other than you working out?
I have to work out. Remember what I'm solving for: energy and stamina, right? Energy and stamina. But yeah, for me, it's kind of seeing what's going on in the market. I check my emails. I kind of look at the stats. Like right now when I'm on the phone with you, right before to being on the phone with you, I was looking at all our numbers, who's made the most money, who's writing the most insurance policies, whose numbers are down, who's trending up, who's the most competitive right now, you know, what call do I need to make, who needs what from me. Every morning I do this where I look at all our trends. Every one of the trends I study in the morning, every one of the trends I study in the morning. In our office, we have data everywhere. I look at all the data everywhere. Licensing, policies, annuities, sales, everywhere we have data. So I look at data, and then I know what we need to do that day, who I need to speak to, and we get the day started.
Yeah, I saw a video you were saying how you need to find the rising stars, otherwise people might bury them or get rid of them without having a chance to reach you. That was actually very, very interesting.
Yeah, so if you're not a hands-on leader, you're going to lose your rising star. And by the way, so many times you think the best person you have is the person you talk to the most, who is like a direct report to you. Very rarely is that the case. I'll give you an idea. My message I'm just sending right now, right after you get off the phone with you, I'm going to send it to you. The number one earner in the company from 2009 till today isn't the guy that was here on day one. The number one earner historically in the company is officially the guy that's only been here for 3.5 years. He's about to pass him up. He's only $87,000 behind him. Obviously, they both made millions of dollars.
Of course.
But it's only $87,000 behind them. So here's a guy that did in 3.5 years what the other guy did in 9 years. Very important to understand that. So why am I sending that? Well, that other guy thought he was going to be the guy that's going to kick some major tail. But this new guy wants desire more than the other guy. What if I only banked on this guy? So you have to make sure you're out there looking for your next rising stars, or else you'll miss the point for your LeBron James and Michael Jordan because you're so focused on a person you like the most rather than the person that's going to get you the most rings and championships.
What does it take for someone to work for you, Pat? Like, what do you look for in somebody?
A few things that's hard to teach. I look for a certain level of desire that you have. You got to have the fire, and you can tell from the eye, like you really want to go out there and do something. Like when you're given challenges, you respond. I like a level of coachability where you follow on your instructions, somebody that keeps their word. A level of sports-minded in the past. I like if you've worked in sports, you have some experience in the world of sports or military, because both sports and military teaches you one thing, just teamwork. And so if I work with a guy that's a tennis player is different than a basketball or soccer, because tennis is solo. It's you. Poker is solo. You know, golf is you. basketball, baseball, football, rugby. This is group. You have to learn how to get the best in conflict, issues, arguments, fights, locker room. And so I like sports-minded people. And yeah, those are some of the things I look for. By the way, if I notice you don't respond to challenges, you won't get a lot of my time. Let me explain. A guy calls me 9 months ago. This guy's 20 years my senior. And 17 years my senior. He used to be one of the biggest insurance guys in another company. He makes a good amount of money with us. We paid him $250,000 in the last 12 months. But he called me. He says, well, I'm really going through some things. I really want to learn how to get my agency bigger. What do you recommend? I spoke to him for 45 minutes. And I told him 2 books for him to read, okay? He read one of them. The other book he never read. He called me back. He says, can we get on a call again? I asked him, did you read the other book I recommended you? No. I said, I'm not getting on a call yet. Why? Because you don't respond. So what's the purpose of another call? If you haven't yet done the first thing I told you to do, what do you want me to tell you this time? Whatever I tell you, you're not going to do anyway. So why are we doing another call together? So he realized that. So I have to make sure if a challenge is being given to a certain person, I want to see you respond to it. If you do, good. Let's start running together. If you don't, maybe somebody else is good for you rather than me.
Okay, I got 2 more questions for you, but before that, what do you recommend for the people that are watching right now? 2 books for them to read, and how would someone get in touch with you to work for you, Pat? How would somebody get to you?
Well, what topics you want the 2 books on? Because give me topics. What specific topics are we looking for?
I've just said 2 books because, okay, let's combine it with people that want to work with you or people that want to succeed in life.
So for me, Laws of Success is number 1, Napoleon Hill. Laws of Success for me is number 1. It's a ridiculous book that breaks down a lot of things like health, concentration, marriage, relationship, focus. It's a powerful book. I couldn't put the book down. It's a life-changing type of book. I think it was written, most people say Napoleon Hill, they say Think and Grow Rich. I'm all about Laws of Success. Think and Grow Rich is good, but Laws of Success to me is 10 times better. And the other book you asked me about, industry-wise, I would tell you to read the book, probably The One Thing by Keller, Gary Keller. He's the founder of Keller Williams. I love his philosophy. I think he's a beast. He will teach you that basic fundamental. The one thing's going to, teach you on what to be focused on. That's what I tell you. As far as how to get in touch with me, look, I think the best thing is for you to go on YouTube and watch the video, How to Create Wealth. And you'll see me talking about 4 steps to creating wealth. Watch that video, but best bet is watch the videos on Valuetainment. That'll give you an idea about, what we stand for in the teaching. And if you want to send me a tweet directly, I actually respond to tweets at Patrick Bay David. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
Send me a tweet at Patrick Bay David. I'll generally respond back to the tweet you send me.
So I'll tell you a funny story about Napoleon Hill. It just so happens, one of the books I wrote, The Closers Part 3, was with Ben Gay III, and he was working with Napoleon Hill and with Zig Ziglar. They were actually working together, and apparently Napoleon Hill, Dr. Hill, went over to Ben's house, and they had a book of Think and Grow Rich on the table. And Ben, half jokingly asked, how does it feel to have the most sold book after the Bible? And Dr. Hill said, the most sold book, the least read.
Wow.
And I just thought that was very
That's crazy.
My reaction was
I like that.
Okay, so Pat,
let's do 2 more questions because I got
more questions.
I got to take my voice.
What are some questions? Well, okay, what's one question, so we'll make this faster, you wish people asked you?
Yeah, the right question is what I did when I was coming up and I was broke. That's the question. I think a lot of times people ask the questions with the person that's the final product. And the question you got to ask is, Pat, you're 24 years old. You're absolutely broke. You have no clue whether you're going to make it or not. What were you doing? That's the question, right? And if you ask me that question, you ask me what I was doing at that time. I mean, listen, I worked Monday, and I know this is going to scare some people. I worked 7 days a week. I was working every single day. I went 17 months without sex, literally. I wouldn't say, this, if you follow Valuetainment, I've talked about it multiple times. And sex was very important to me because I had a lot of beautiful women in my life. And one day I told him, I said, I'm just not going to do it for 17 months until I become a millionaire. And by the way, you don't have to worry about it. Your dangling doesn't fall off if you go 17 months without your foot. Okay. So I was so obsessed about winning that everything to me was about getting this done sooner rather than later. Meaning I wanted to condense time frames and do in 18 months what took most people 10 years to do. So I didn't want to do 60 hours a week for 5 years or 10 years. I went 100 hours a week for 2 years. And then all of a sudden, boom, okay, it blew up. Then I said, what if I go 5 years? Boom. Then I said, what if I go 10 years? And that's when you start getting some real weird things that start happening. So for me, it was a pure level of obsession at the beginning stages when I was going. I think too many times people are looking for convenience, and it's just not going to happen. It is pretty ugly when you go to the top. Very ugly process with a lot of hours. And you got to keep your head down and get after it before it becomes a reality.
Pat, that is amazing. Thank you for doing this. Is there anything else you would like to add before you say goodbye?
Clarity, man, clarity. Answer those 2 questions, whatever you do. Right after this podcast, share this podcast with your wife, with your kids, with your friends, with your brothers, with your business partners. And the only outcome of this podcast, if everything you heard from today, if you got those 2 questions for you to answer, who you want to be and what you want, this served its purpose. And I will tell you this, those 2 questions, again, 99% of the world hasn't answered who they want to be, what they want in life. You do that, you're ahead of everybody.
Pat, thank you so much. And thank you for watching. Check out Pat's channel, Valuetainment, and other links down in the description below. This podcast is eye-opening if you let it. Thank you. And until next time, keep succeeding.